Hello everyone, I'm Joel Haas, joined by Lyle Alenstein here at Beaver Stadium, where Penn State just defeated Maryland 44-7 to move to 45-2 in the all-time series or something like that. Pretty dominant performance from almost start to finish, not quite start, because Maryland jumped out to an early 7-0 lead after a few mistakes by Penn State. But overall, obviously a pretty dominant performance here. Penn State clinches a spot in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon next Saturday because Michigan was able to upset Ohio State. So a pretty unexpected result here, but Penn State gets the job done, advances to 11-1, and now has a chance to get its first Big Ten championship since 2016. So we'll be with you from that game. But first of all, Lyle, what are your biggest takeaways from today's game?
Yeah, so if we want to pick on some negatives, the slow start. Nick Singleton fumbled first play from scrimmage. Second play from scrimmage, MJ Morris found, I think it was Prather.
Yeah,
Caden Prather to the back of the end zone for a touchdown. So, these slow starts. But, not really. I mean, this was Penn State from not start to
finish.
From the third play to
game.
Finish. Obviously, dominant showing.
To the very end, too, because of the garbage time touchdown there.
Yeah, so all around, Drew played fine. Nick Singleton, I think he went over 80 yards, I believe.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the talk. He's been slowly getting healthier and healthier. We've seen flashes of it. Hasn't really put together an overall strong performance since Washington, even though he exited that game earlier with injury. He looked great today. He was talking about how healthy he is. He's feeling great. You saw it on display. Tyler Warren, I think it was the record counter was, I believe, 3.
3 new records.
Penn State program record for most touchdowns by a tight end and receptions, and I believe most receptions in a single season by a tight end for the Big Ten.
I think he might have broke the program record for program records today.
Yeah,
but we'll have to fact check that one.
So just overall good stuff on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, defensive side of the ball, same thing. Audavian Collins breakout that James Franklin was building up the hype for all summer. Obviously, he was in that 6th cornerback role. He filled into that number 5 slot as of late with Elliott Washington dealing with an injury. Played really well, got his first career interception, which obviously he said it was a dream come true for him post-game. Tony Rojas, guy who's kind of struggled late in the tackling department, but just like he did last year against Maryland, he played another great game. Maryland killer, and that's his home state. Shell-shocked, got a nice interception. Abdul Carter denied Dennis-Sutton is pretty hard for – I mean, obviously Maryland's offensive line is weak. That's something that they've struggled with recruiting and building the talent for. So, obviously, DDS and Abdul feasted on him post-game. During the game. Post-game, they talked about how they feasted on him. But it was just overall good stuff. You saw a bunch of the younger guys get in. Tysier Denmark, who's the highly touted wide receiver recruit that people were talking about if he was going to even see some time at all this season. He really hasn't, except for his past couple of games. But he's preserved his red shirt, got a nice touchdown at the end of the game, which he was absolutely fired up about. Got mobbed by his teammates, which prompted some little post-game antics
a little drama,
with Franklin and Mike Loxley.
Yeah. Not sure exactly what was said. It was a little bit hard to make out, but Loxley held the post-game handshake a little longer than probably Franklin wanted to. Held him in, said something to Franklin. Franklin was obviously mad about it, and then they parted ways. But obviously he wasn't a fan of the late score. James Franklin later defended the decision in post-game, which I thought he had some fair points. Penn State had its 3s and 4s in at that time. Maryland kept its first string defense in, and if you don't want Penn State to score, on the last play of the game, then stop the 3rd and 4th string guys who are playing for the first time in their college careers. He also mentioned that Maryland was playing a cover 0 defense, which is obviously a pretty aggressive style of defense there. They weren't playing, cover 2, cover 3, something more relaxed like that. So obviously if Maryland was still playing aggressive and things like that, and even on the previous possession for Maryland, they were passing the ball and things like that with 2 minutes left in the game when they could have just been running out the clock. And so, obviously it kind of goes both ways there. I think it is a little bit of a bad look for Franklin to, be scoring on the last play in a 44-7 game. But regardless, he also referenced the college football playoff rankings and how a lot of those guys watch the box score. A lot of the committee don't actually watch the games. They look at the box score after the game, and 44 is greater than 37, or
That's good.
than 38 technically because there was no extra point. But regardless, it's a bigger number. The committee is going to like it more. And, maybe Penn State still stays above Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame picked up a big win over USC, which is obviously a common opponent between the two. And Notre Dame won by more than Penn State did, so we'll see what the committee does there moving forward. But, like Lyle touched on, a lot of guys getting involved today. Harrison Wallace III doing a touch on him. He was listed as questionable on the team's availability report, which dropped 2 hours before kickoff, or it was about 30 minutes late this week, but dropped before kickoff. He was listed as questionable. We saw him come out onto the field for pregame warmups. He was kind of standing around with the rest of the wide receivers, but didn't actually go through any of the drills, wasn't really involved, and then obviously didn't play today. So some other guys kind of had to step up. Omari Evans was a guy that I thought took a bigger leap. I think he had 4 catches for 49 yards, something like that today. I thought it was interesting because in the past, Evans has been used as, the deep ball threat. It's like if he's going to get involved, which there are a lot of games where he doesn't get involved, but if he does, it's 1 catch for 50 yards and a touchdown. But today it was, multiple catches, not necessarily the big plays. They did target him on 1 deep ball earlier in the game that they couldn't connect on. But he was getting involved in some of the short passing game, which is kind of new for Evans, and it's probably, something they were doing with Harrison Wallace out today. Obviously, Tyler Warren things.
The hurdle.
If
we want to touch on a highlight.
Great hurdle, yeah. Great moment.
Drew obviously, bobbled the ball a little bit, scrambled around, kind of flipped it out to the flat. Tyler Warren, he hurdled him. Obviously, did what he did today. We just already talked about him and all the records he broke. But James Franklin, another immaculate pitch in favor of Tyler Warren. He's a beast. He's a stud. He said that they should fly the Mackey overnight to State College on a private plane. Made another case saying he belongs to spot in New York, and said he would pay for a vacation for Tyler Warren's parents.
He wants another Warren on the roster.
He wants another Warren. So take that how you will. But obviously, he did a great job. But a few other injury bugs on top of Harrison Wallace. Drew got banged up at one point, returned a few plays later. Bo took over for 3 snaps, got a rushing touchdown. Seemed fine. You saw Dakari Nelson exit pretty early on special teams. Do not believe he returned. Vega Ioane, starting left guard, got banged up as well. Limped off pretty gingerly, but returned back a few plays later. I believe he was blocking at left guard for that Nick Singleton rushing touchdown. And tight end Khalil Dinkins also left with injury, did not return. That was pretty late in the game. So I thought his services weren't really needed if they were on to preserve him, because there's a Big Ten championship coming up next week. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see, because when we walked into this game knowing hey, yeah, there's a shot, they're in Indianapolis, but we didn't really think Michigan would pull it off. So we'll see if Ryan Day still sticks around. Sharon Moore, pepper spray on the players post-game, but we'll be in Indianapolis next week. So.
Crazy scene in Columbus, obviously. Ryan Day now even more on the hot seat than he was before, which, hey, maybe it'll warm him up, because it is, as you can probably tell from the smoke coming out of our mouths, very cold here in Penn State, and undoubtedly in Ohio as well. But
first game for St. Durant, the Florida guy, in cold like this, he said it was weird, but it was sick. He's going to have to get used to it for a playoff game, but just, a little tidbit right there. Yeah,
Davian Collins talked about it a little bit as well, being a guy from the South, and how kind of different it was to experience the winter here in Happy Valley. But, yeah, and I think that did affect attendance as well a little bit.
Obviously,
Sure, but, yeah, the student section was pretty miserable, and then even the other 3 sections weren't necessarily packed. Just attendance-wise, I don't know if they ever announced.
I don't think they did.
I think they were too embarrassed. I think they were too embarrassed to announce the official attendance today. It obviously wasn't great. But regardless, not like Penn State really needed any more home field advantage in this one. They took care of business, comfortable win. First 11-win regular season since 2008 for Penn State. Obviously, they've done it in the postseason before, but to go 11-1 regular season hasn't been done in a while, hasn't been done under James Franklin. There's obviously, a lot of big takeaways there. Just kind of a historic season for Penn State that obviously isn't over. So we'll catch up with you guys again next week from Indianapolis with our thoughts from that game against Oregon. Obviously, that's going to be a massive game with huge playoff implications. Penn State with a win, could get its first Big Ten title since 2016, and I think it would just be like the 3rd ever Big Ten title for Penn State. And then obviously they would get the first round bye in the playoffs, so a lot on the line there for the Nittany Lions. James Franklin said that they were originally going to have tomorrow off. Now they don't. They have a scheduled practice because they have to get ready to go.
I was excited for practice. He was very excited.
Well, Jalen Reed said he had plans to go to New York tomorrow, which are no longer in the cards. Little change of plans there with Michigan's big upset. I guess Penn State wasn't really anticipating that. I don't think anyone else was.
It's so fun.
It is hilarious. But regardless, that's everything we have for you guys from this week. If you enjoyed the takeaways, please like and subscribe. We're going to go get warm, but we'll be with you next week. So we'll see you then.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.